Hey, this is Dr. Robin. It's great to meet you all in this virtual space. I'm excited to have you in this class. One thing I thought I'd tell you a little bit about is why I decided to do this class. I mean, the power of you. I think some people probably saw the title and said, what in the heck is that even about? So, this is essentially a self-help and personal growth class. I want to bring topics that we know about in the field of psychology that are researched, that are used with therapists and their clients, and I want to boil those down to what you can use for you so that you are becoming your healthiest, happiest, most peaceful version of yourself. Secondly, I want you to have these tools in your toolkit so that you can use them for others, whether that's just casually in your day-to-day life with partners and friends and family members, or whether that's in your jobs in the future or your current jobs. A lot of you are or will be in the helping professions in some capacity. And part of your role is to help others be the best version of themselves. So I want you to have the tools in your toolkit. Let me tell you a little bit about me too. I've been at the Mount for an incredibly long time, and I feel very old when I talk about it, but I've been here more than 20 years. I started out as staff. I used to work in academic advisement on the Doheny campus. I then worked in what used to be called the Learning Resource Center, which was focused on tutoring and academic support. That's now our Academic Support Center. I started tutoring for psychology, and the way I say it is I fell into teaching sideways. It's the last thing I ever thought I would do, but I loved the tutoring process of talking with students about what they were getting out of their psychology classes for Psych 1. And so on a whim, I reached out to the head of the psych department and said, hey, if you ever need somebody to teach a class, let me know. That was a very scary thing for me to do, to put myself out there like that. But a couple of months later, they got back to me and offered me a Psych 1 class. And then I really freaked out. Like, oh my gosh, what have I done to myself? How am I going to do this? But it turned out to be an incredibly enjoyable process to be on a journey with this group of students. And I realized that as much as I love talking with students in the office and advisement, and I still love advisement, it's still one of my favorite parts of my job, but something so exciting happens in a class when we go on a journey together. And speaking of the journey, what's going to be interesting for me in this class is what does that look like for this to be an asynchronous journey? That is new for me. I'm very much used to the conversations that we have together in a classroom, and I've been thinking in some really creative ways about what that looks like for us to engage with one another in meaningful ways, to also come together and reflect on ourselves in meaningful ways so that you get something of depth out of this class. I don't want this to just be a box that you check off to get the credits that you need, which I think sometimes is how we think of asynchronous classes, but I want this to be a class that you are going to take with you, that you're going to hold on to some of this beyond the class. I'll tell you a little bit more to go back to my story if I jump back to that for a minute. So as I mentioned, I reached out and taught a Psych 1. Eventually that became 2 classes and 3 classes, and pretty soon I was teaching full time with my master's degree. And the head of the department sat me down and said, Robin, you're great at this, but if you want to do it for the rest of your life, you got to go get more letters behind your name. And I kind of went, no, no more school, no more school. But I went off and got my PhD just because I knew I wanted to come back and teach psychology at Mount St. Mary's. And I was very lucky to make it back here to do just that. For a little bit, I also ran a center that was called the Student Success Center, where we focused on really holding space for students to talk about anything that they were dealing with. And that's always a part of my passion, is just what does it take to make college students successful? So that's a big piece of who I am as well. I was lucky to get back into the psych department. A position opened up the next year and they brought me into the master's program. And I was going like, what? Master's? Like, what am I supposed to do with that? That's not my babies. But then I realized that master students are the same people, just a little bit further along in their journeys. And I love hearing what they have to say, especially when that's a student I had in Psych 1 4 or 5, 6 years ago. I also teach a lot with Weekend College, and I know that this class is actually a combination of some of you are in the traditional undergrad bachelor's program, some of you are in the Weekend College bachelor's program, and that means we have a range of ages and life experiences in the class, and I love that as well because I love meeting students at different stages of their lives, and I think what stage you're at in your life and what you're navigating right now, whether that's being in college for the first time and wondering where you're going with all of this, whether that's being close to graduation and thinking about what's next in your career, whether you are maybe a parent who cares for a whole family while you carry your career at the same time that you've come back to college. In any of those, I know that you're dealing with a lot of the challenges we're going to talk about in this class. We're going to talk about how we wrestle with illogical thoughts and frame them to be more positive and realistic. We're going to talk about our emotions and how we hold space for emotions because your emotions at the end of the day are always valid. We're going to talk about self-compassion, which essentially is a way of kind of taking it easy on yourself. Don't be such a harsh judge and basically treat yourself the way you would treat a friend, which is harder to do than you might think. We're going to talk about mindfulness, which is one of my favorite topics. And I talk about it in a very different way than a lot of people might talk about it. You're going to see that mindfulness means a little something different to me, and I have different ways into it. And a lot of those are creative and artistic and playful. And I really believe in the importance of fun. We're going to talk about fun and joy in this class. We're going to talk about community and how we come together with the communities that support us. We're going to talk about boundaries and how to draw healthy boundaries, which I know is a challenge for all of us. We're going to talk about spirituality. Yeah, that's a little teaser for what this is going to be about. So, what I'll ask of you in here is to really look deeply at yourself and engage thoughtfully in the activities so that you get the most out of this. To get the most out of your time and money in this class means use all of these activities each week to see which ones really work for you that you might want to hold on to beyond this class. There's so much more that I could say, but I think that's a good place for me to wrap it up now. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you in here. Bye.